The invisible weight you carry. There are moments in life when you enter a room and silence follows. Not because of anything you've said, but because of what you carry. Quietly, steadily, without intention. That weight, unseen but felt, is your aura. It's not mystical. It's not magic. It is presence, shaped by the depth of your mind, the clarity of your spirit, and the restraint of your actions. It is the result of discipline, of solitude, of having faced yourself when others refused. In a world addicted to noise, that stillness is unsettling. What is aura really? To speak of aura is not to wander into fantasy. It is to describe the natural atmosphere a person emits, the consequence of who they've become. Carl Jung believed that every human being possesses a shadow, the parts we deny, avoid, suppress. Few dare to face it, fewer still choose to integrate it, but those who do, they become whole, and that wholeness radiates. It forms the psychological aura we speak of. You might call it gravitational energy, others call it presence. Stoics would call it equanimity. It cannot be bought. It emerges only when the soul has met itself. And when it does, others feel it. Even if they can't explain why the mirror people avoid a strong aura does not attract attention because it is loud. It attracts attention because it reflects. Like a still pool of water, it shows others their own face. And many are not ready to see it. You may notice this. Strangers open up to you, only to distance themselves later. Colleagues keep conversations superficial, avoiding eye contact. Even friends seem uncomfortable when silence lingers too long around you. They're not rejecting you, they are retreating from their own discomfort, projected onto your calm. Jung called this projection. People cast their unresolved fears, shame, and confusion onto those who appear clear. In your silence, they hear their noise. In your calm, they feel their chaos. In your directness, they see their masks slip. Too intense or simply too honest? You may have heard it. You're too intense. You think too much. You make people uncomfortable. These are not insults. They are confessions, unintentional admissions that your depth demands presence, and not everyone is prepared to meet you there. In Stoicism, we are taught not to bend to flattery or offense, to stand firm, knowing that neither praise nor rejection defines us. So if the world calls you too much, pause and consider. Is it you or the shallow water that resent the deep? When belonging feels foreign, you might walk through life feeling as if you don't belong. Not quite here, not quite there, too quiet for the loud, too direct for the polite, too observant for the oblivious. That's not a flaw. It's an indication that you are no longer shaped by crowds. Seneca once wrote, "You must live for yourself if you would live for others. You are not here to entertain, to please, to mold yourself into a form that others find convenient. You are here to become. And that process, that becoming, will make others uneasy because it reminds them of the work they haven't done. Let that be. You are not responsible for their avoidance." Signs you carry a heavy aura. If you've lived through fire and chosen not to become ash, if you've sat with solitude long enough to hear your own thoughts clearly, if you speak little but listen deeply, then you carry something rare, and the world notices. Here are a few signs. Your presence either draws people in or sends them away. No middle ground. You polarize. That's the mark of clarity. Small talk exhausts you, not because you're antisocial, but because you crave something real. People confide in you and then vanish. You stir something in them and they're not sure how to handle it. You've been labeled too serious or too intense, but all you did was exist without the mask. You find peace in solitude. You don't fear being alone, you fear being fake. None of this is accidental. It's the cost of awareness and the beginning of wisdom, what Stoicism teaches about presence. The Stoics were not concerned with appearances. They did not measure a person by their smile or status. They measured them by one thing, how they carried themselves in silence. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Your aura. This psychological presence is not something you need to explain or defend. It is something you live, quietly, consistently, and in doing so you unsettle the world. Because the world is not used to calm power. It is used to noise, to display, to pretense. When you don't engage in that, you become difficult to categorize. You become to them a mystery, and to some, a threat. A final thought, you will be misunderstood. You will be misread. People will project onto you their fears, their envy, their confusion. Let them. Your job is not to soften your edges to fit the comfort of others. Your job is to sharpen your clarity, to remain sincere in a world that rewards performance. Your aura is not a curse. It is your compass. It is the result of inner labor, the quiet building of self that needs no audience. So walk steadily. Let your silence speak, and remember, you don't need to be understood by everyone, only aligned within. The psychology of silent power. Why depth triggers insecurity. There is a particular kind of strength that does not announce itself. It does not shout. It does not dominate. It simply exists. And that alone is enough to shift the atmosphere. You've probably seen it. Someone enters the room without saying much and suddenly the energy bends. They carry no arrogance, no agenda, just presence, calm, still, watchful. That is the essence of silent power. And like all true power, it doesn't aim to impress, it aims to endure. But in a world where confidence is often confused with volume, this kind of power makes people uneasy. It reveals the instability in others. It rattles the shallow waters. And that in itself is a lesson in Stoic psychology. Why your depth feels dangerous to others. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. When your presence is still, when your words are few but precise, when your eyes don't dart around seeking validation, you are, without intending to be, a mirror. You show people their distractions. You show them their unease. You make them aware of how far they've drifted from themselves. And that reflection, clean and sharp, can feel like a threat. It is not you that disturbs them. It is what you unintentionally reflect, the truth they have buried. The Stoic view, disturbance begins within. Epictetus taught that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about things. So when someone reacts negatively to your presence, with irritation, with distance, with forced politeness, it's not necessarily a judgment of you. It is a revelation of them. Your depth reminds them of their friend. Your clarity reminds them of their confusion. Your emotional restraint reminds them of their compulsive distraction. In short, you do not fit neatly into their map of the world, and that makes them question the map itself. Brain's reaction to presence from a psychological perspective, this makes sense. The human brain has what researchers call the social threat detection system. It's designed to scan environments for subtle signs of dominance, unpredictability, or judgment. When someone with a strong aura walks in, calm, grounded, hard to read, the brain doesn't know what to do with them. They don't fit into the usual boxes: friendly, threatening, weak, safe. So the brain interprets this uncertainty as a kind of threat. Add to that the mirror neurons, which subconsciously copy the body language, tone, and emotional states of others, and the result is unsettling. Your inner stillness forces others to notice their inner chaos. That's not your fault. That's biology meeting philosophy. You don't seek authority, yet you challenge it. One of the most telling signs of silent power is this: you do not seek power, and yet you quietly challenge those who pretend to hold it. This happens often in workplaces or social circles. The person in charge, the loudest in the room, they hold status. But when you speak calmly, briefly, and with clarity, their authority begins to feel hollow. You didn't mean to expose it, but you did. You didn't challenge their words, you simply didn't need to. That absence of need is threatening, because people in power often depend on the approval of others. But you, Stoic in nature, have learned to approve of yourself first. The myth of charisma versus the truth of presence. In our modern culture, we often praise charisma, charm, likability, the ability to work a room. But charisma, by definition, relies on attention. It feeds off of it. It must be maintained. Presence, however, is different. It does not beg to be seen. It simply is. The Stoics taught us that a wise person is self-contained, that virtue is silent, that dignity is quiet. A person with real presence does not demand attention, but when they speak, the room quiets. When they move, others make space. Not out of fear, but out of respect, even if unspoken. Why depth feels lonely. But isn't isolation, let's be honest. Depth can feel lonely, not because you are alone, but because few will meet you there. Most people prefer the surface. They stay busy, distracted, entertained, but depth requires slowness. It requires silence. It requires discomfort. You've likely noticed that when you bring depth into a conversation, people grow uneasy. They change the subject. They fidget. They joke. It's not rejection. It's unfamiliarity. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. Your discomfort with the shallow is not a curse. It is evidence that you are still awake in a world that prefers sleep. How to carry silent power, even its silent power, must be tempered. It must not become pride. It must not become distance. It must not become silent judgment. The Stoic way is not superiority, it is stability. Here are a few reminders for carrying your depth with wisdom. Do not expect to be understood by everyone. Seek clarity, not popularity. Be firm without being hard. Set boundaries, but leave room for kindness. Don't explain your silence. Let your actions speak the philosophy you live by. Lead by example, not persuasion. Influence through alignment, not argument. Know when to speak and when to remain still. As Epictetus taught, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Final thought. When you carry silent power, the kind rooted in virtue, forged in solitude, and polished by adversity, you will be misunderstood. You will trigger insecurity. You will walk alone at times, but that is the path. Not because you are above others, but because you have chosen to go within, where most fear to tread. So walk with quiet confidence, not to impress, not to dominate, but to embody what others still seek. Let your silence be a sanctuary, not a weapon. Let your presence remind the world there is strength in restraint. Living with intense energy, protecting your aura without dimming it. If you carry a quiet strength, if you live with presence that unsettles, not because it is aggressive, but because it is clear, then you understand the weight of intensity. It is not a costume. It is not a performance. It is a consequence of self-inquiry, of emotional discipline, of walking through fire and emerging calm. But intensity must be managed, not suppressed. Power must be guided, not denied. In this final part, we explore how to live with a strong psychological aura, to protect it without apologizing for it, and without letting the world convince you that gentleness means shrinking. Not everyone will understand you. That's not a problem. Many people feel uncomfortable around emotional depth, not because you are wrong, but because they are used to surfaces. Most are fluent in small talk, but stutter in the language of sincerity. They speak often, but say little. They value ease and avoid truth. When you live from depth, you will not be universally understood. But that is not failure, that is filter. A strong aura filters who enters your life. You do not repel people, you simply repel pretense. As Marcus Aurelius noted, the approval of the crowd is worthless. Seek not applause, seek alignment. Let your clarity remove what is not meant for you. How to protect your energy without building walls. There's a danger in being misunderstood often. You begin to harden. You build walls. You isolate. You become a fortress. But the Stoic way is not to shut off the world. It is to engage wisely. A few principles help you navigate this. Know your energetic limits. Don't overexpose yourself to chaos. Choose your environments carefully. Protect your peace like a temple, not a prison, but a sanctuary. Don't fight to be understood. Silence is sometimes the strongest form of truth. Let your actions and stillness speak. Explanation often invites distortion. Set boundaries without aggression. No is a full sentence. You do not need to justify your need for solitude or space. Let go of pleasing. The Stoic is not indifferent, but he is independent of others' approval. Choose integrity over likability. Practice regular solitude. Time alone is not loneliness. It is recalibration. It allows your mind to return to itself and your aura to reset. Building a life that matches your energy. You can't thrive in every space, and you're not supposed to. There are environments, jobs, social circles, even families that feed on noise, chaos, and comparison. If your energy is built on self-awareness and quiet power, these environments will slowly suffocate you. Build your life with intention, slowly, quietly, like a Stoic carpenter. Curate your inputs. What you consume becomes part of you. Choose media, books, conversations, and environments that match your values, not just your interests. Surround yourself with quality, not quantity. One person who sees you is worth more than 100 who tolerate you. Create more than you explain. Whether it's writing, music, work, or simple acts of service, let your output reflect your inner life. Creation is clarity made visible. Slow your pace. A strong aura does not rush. It is deliberate, grounded, unrushed. Do not be pulled into the speed of a world that doesn't know where it's going. Live by principle, not pressure. Make your decisions in stillness, not reaction. When pressure mounts, remember. Virtue is never hurried, finding others with depth. It may feel like you're the only one walking this path, but you are not. There are others, quiet, discerning, steady, who live from within. They may not be loud, they may not be online, but they exist. You will find them by how they listen, by what they don't need to say, by how they move through the world with intention. You do not need to belong to the crowd. You only need to recognize your tribe when you cross paths. Often the sign is simple. You feel at ease in their presence. No need to shrink, no need to perform, no need to guard. As Seneca wrote, there is no enjoying the possession of anything valuable unless one has someone to share it with. Value attracts value. Depth attracts depth. When you carry silent power, you don't need to search. Only stay aligned. The right people will see you. Redefining belonging. One of the greatest misunderstandings in life is that belonging comes from others, that we must be invited, accepted, voted in. But real belonging begins with the self. When you live with inner alignment, when your thoughts, words, and actions move in harmony, you belong everywhere and nowhere. You are not owned by the group. You are not shaped by the crowd. You belong to purpose, not popularity, to principle, not performance. And that kind of belonging, it cannot be taken away. If you carry a strong aura, know this: you are not too much. You are not too distant. You are not broken. You are simply clear. And in a fogged world, clarity is disruptive. Walk softly, but don't apologize. Speak slowly, but don't dim your truth. Hold space for others, but don't collapse your own. You will unsettle the insecure. You will confuse the uncentered. You will challenge the artificial. Let that happen. And while they scramble to define you, remember, the Stoic does not beg to be understood. He seeks only to remain aligned. You are not here to blend. You are here to become, quietly, relentlessly, and with great care for the soul you carry.